The numbers are eye-popping. 1 out of 3 chiropractors have considered leaving the profession due to burnout. And I'm not just talking about needing to take some time off. I mean actually leaving the profession entirely. Some people would just say, it's just part of the job to be busy. It was just a bad day. Guess what? There's way more to it than that. And we need better answers and better explanations. And today, we're going to get some on this episode of Chiropractical. I'm Jon Kec, a chiropractor for over 10 years. And when I saw that 1 out of 3 of my colleagues suffered from such severe burnout, they considered leaving the profession, my jaw dropped. But then I started to think, should it? Because I feel like I've been in the same place. Early on in my career, I'd have a bad day once in a while. I just didn't really want to be in the clinic. And then I started to notice it was more and more. It was 2 days a week, 3 days a week. I don't know. But I got to the point where I really started to ask myself, what do I do? And I didn't have any answers. So today, we're going to try to figure out, what can you do? How do we ensure that fewer and fewer of our colleagues end up in a position where they're just burned out, or honestly, they think about leaving the profession entirely? Our guest today will be Dr. Mario Fucinari. He's been a fixture in the chiropractic world and practiced for more than 35 years. Since stepping away, he's been a highly sought after speaker, educator, and today is here to talk to us about the dangers of chiropractic burnout. Dr. Fucinari, so glad you're here. Thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you, John. It's great to be here with you and with everybody in your audience.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I want to dive right in. As I was kind of looking over some of the stuff for us today, 1 out of 3 doctors consider leaving the profession. That's crazy to me. We spend so much time in school. We spend so much time just dedicating ourselves to taking care of people. We forget to take care of ourselves. And next thing you know, 1/3 of us want to quit.
Well, I will tell you that burnout is real for every profession, but we care so much for our patients, but also it's like you're running a business, and many people in general, and doctors for sure, they don't realize that there's a business aspect and there's a doctor aspect, and
Sure.
there's a third aspect, which is your own personal life and family life too. And it's finding that balance. That's the difficult part.
Absolutely. So how does that compare to other medical professions? Are we on the high end, low end, kind of average?
Well, compared to other, there actually Medscape did a study, and we are kind of like in the middle to the lower, and there are
Okay.
other professions that have higher amounts of burnout and even suicide.
If you could give one piece of advice to our listeners, top piece of advice to take that 33% number and bring it down, what is it?
How about I give you maybe three, because
I, I,
I've got.
I even
So,
better.
okay, so number one is reconnect. And it could be reconnect with yourself, reconnect with your family, reconnect with your passion, your mission in life. We are all put here for a purpose. So reconnect. That would be number
Okay.
one. And that reconnection here will give you like a GPS, a path to go. Number two is compartmentalize. Be in the moment. And this is totally off the cuff. I don't have anything written down here. Be in the moment. And number three is be true to yourself. Reach out to your family, reach out to any loved ones, but also, reach out to professionals. And once you, like any other issue in life, once you reach out and just admit, I need help, then help will be there for you, just like you are for your patients.
How do we get to the doctor right now who's maybe had more of those days where they're looking at stepping away than days they're excited to be in the office? How do we turn them back and make sure they're not one of those 33%?
Well, that's a great question. I think number one, that I would tell doctors in general and even their staff is, reflect and do a self assessment, because you got to be honest with yourself, because doctors, we're people in general are used to living day to day, and it's your state of mind actually becomes compensatory, and you grow used to certain states here. But
Sure.
recognize the signs and symptoms of burnout. Are you angry? Are you depressed? Are you grumpy? Are you losing sleep? Um, when you're home, you want to be at the office. When you're at the office, you want to be home. Are you having difficulties with your family life? Are you taking care of yourself? Not only mind, body, spirit, but
Mhm.
also with your relationships with your family and perhaps your children.
So really that out of balance, right? You just
Right.
you feel like you're spinning almost, right? You're always focused on the next thing or the other place or just not in the moment, which in a lot of ways is probably detrimental to patient care, right? You're not hearing that patient the same way, you're not devoting the same time and energy to them, which is probably more dangerous than anything else. Dangerous isn't the right word. That's not fair. But it's more detrimental, we'll say, to them than anything else.
Back in my days when I went to Palmer Davenport, and we learned a key term which I have found over the years has become so important to me is homeostasis. And
Yeah.
what is homeostasis? Homeostasis is everything working in unison and as a unit. And when you are out of homeostasis, sometimes you need a checkup from the neck up, I always say, right? The
Yeah,
suffocation's in
absolutely.
between your ears. And,
Of course.
there it's not a cranial adjustment. It's like some mind body adjustments there that
Yep.
you have to do. And you know what? If you feel that you are in a spiral, a downward spiral, reach out for professional help here. Don't just bottle it in. You're not alone. And I'm not a mental health provider, but I recognize, stress. I recognize burnout in not only our profession and individual doctors that I talk to, but I've dealt it with it myself in the past.
And I think I have too. I'm on a different side of the world now, but I remember I hate to say this, my earlier years in practice, and I was frustrated. I felt like I wasn't getting where I wanted to get. I wasn't making that progress forward in building my practice, and partially, not entirely, but I think partially that is why I'm doing what I'm doing now. It's why I work for NCMIC and I don't see patients every day,
Right.
right? So I wouldn't say I burned out on the profession, but I definitely had some fatigue on the day to day practice aspect of things. So, when we start to notice that, that out of balance, that homeostasis is off, that fatigue, that frustration, whatever it may be, how do we start to bring that back? What are some steps we can take to say, hey, I see this, I want to stop it? Some systems we can put in place or some things we can start to do day to day to help turn that around.
Well, I would first caution. Be, I would caution the doctors out there because, you have doctors who are the clinic director, owner of the business, and you have
Mm-hmm.
other of the chiropractors who are the associate doctors. And being an associate doctor has different stresses upon it than maybe the owner does as well.
Absolutely.
But I it took me a while, and as you said, John, I'm retired from practice now. I'm still working. I'm in Plan B, right, and I work as consulting and everything else. But um, you quickly learn it's like, well, when I grew up, okay, when I grew up, do you remember there was a cartoon called the Flintstones? Okay,
Oh yeah.
and what in the beginning opening, the introduction of Flintstones, the whistle blew, and Fred goes sliding down the brontosaurus and said "Yabba dabba doo," right? And it was because the day is over, and go out and have a good time this weekend and bang a gong, the song and everything else, right?
Yeah.
And we don't do that. And chiropractors, if you say why can't I be that way, it's like it's not going. I don't think it's going to happen. And so therefore, what you have to do is compartmentalize. And I will tell you that the best
Okay.
leaders out there and the best business people, if you look at some of the business people out there who are multifaceted, okay, and like a Jeff Bezos or a Elon Musk and whatever the politics, I don't care about that. I'm talking about
Yeah.
them as business people. They have different interests going on, different businesses even, but they compartmentalize very well, and
Okay.
they have their own issues as well. And as a doctor, you have to compartmentalize too. And on the weekend, then even though it's like this burner in the back, that's going, you have to understand it's to put yourself in the moment.
Sure.
Are you with family? Then be engaged with the family. If you're with a patient, be engaged with the patient. If you are taking time for yourself, and how do you take time and disconnect for yourself? Okay. And if I could, I'll just give you a personal thing here. I noticed, because I'm working full time, and I set my goals. And at the beginning of the year, and I know it sounds corny and we've heard this forever, of setting goals and writing them down. Yes, write
Yeah.
them down. You see, and I said, you know what? I am going to play guitar because I love my guitars, and I have five of them in the background here. That's
I
not a
see
fake
the one.
background.
Absolutely.
And I play my guitar at least 30 minutes up to an hour every day
Okay.
of the week. And that's my disconnect. I might like to read. Now, another person, they may like to go play pickleball or golf
Yeah.
or read a book or just go out for a walk, take the dog for a walk, or whatever it might be. But what relaxes you?
Okay.
And what helps you to give you some thought? Meditation, as an example, is another example there. And so those are ways to take care of yourself, not just family, I mentioned that already, but then this way it's maybe, let's call it spiritually, because
Sure.
spiritually it's kind of reconnecting with yourself and realigning. We as chiropractors, we align the joints, therefore allow the nervous system to function properly. And we know if there's a misalignment, it doesn't function properly. And it's very true in life. If there is a misalignment in that balance, then you're not going to function properly either. And burnout is translated to staff. You have
Hmm.
turnover with staff, turnover with patients, and it's like a dog can sense when you're tired, or
Yep.
when you're afraid. I think patients can sense when you don't like your job anymore.
Yeah. And I think it does. It permeates through everybody in your life, right? Your staff, your patients, but also at home. I think that the problems start to compound on themselves, right?
Right.
You come home and you're burned out, and your spouse, your kids, whoever it is, feel it. They get a little on edge. You take that back to work. Your patients feel it. That feeds that cycle. So, yeah. What about maybe that transition to the office side, right? I think we've talked a lot about what you can do for yourself. What can you do in the office, whether that's still kind of for yourself, right? Building things, processes there, but also for your staff. If you start to notice maybe that in staff or in your associate, you're the practice owner and you notice in your associate, how do you help that kind of a situation?
Well, first of all, and I've used that word, I've bantered that about already in our talk, is a leader. You're the captain of the ship. Okay, you're the leader of the office. So you have a mission, you have a passion. Why, number one, reconnect. Why did you get into this profession? I mean, we could have done anything in our life. We could have been a plumber or electrician, but that
Yep.
passion that you have to have as a chiropractor, which might be the same as a carpenter, whatever, it's like that passion, but you have to share that passion.
Sure.
It's not about making money, although our reward is part, not everything, but part of it
Yeah.
is we're paid.
You got to keep the lights on.
Yeah. And so share your passion, share your purpose in life, share your mission in life with your staff. And, the good of the community, the good of our patients, and share. Here's a great one: share success stories.
Yeah.
You know, staff, sometimes you think the doctor is going to share a success story with the staff, which may be true. But sometimes the staff, patients say things to the staff like, I
Absolutely.
can't believe how good I feel. And they don't say that to the doctor, you
Yep.
see? And staff should share that. It's like anybody, of this in a staff meeting. When was the last time you had a staff meeting? Okay. If you're just
Yeah.
starting
Brought
out
everyone
in
together.
practice, weekly staff meetings. If you've been in practice, I don't care if you've been in practice 35 years, monthly staff meeting, you know what? Jimmy John's could deliver. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be something special, but
Yeah.
just say, hey, what what success stories do we have this month? Anybody, and just
Yeah.
open it up. And sometimes, when a patient comes back and says, you make you like I personally, I this may have happened, who knows, 15, 20 years ago, but a patient says, my medical doctor just asked me what medications I want. He's just waiting for me to die. You at least listen to me and you care.
Yeah.
I that patient, I still remember her saying that to me, and like I said, it was many years ago, but it the that's the one that you'll see the battery light kind of go up a little bit,
Hmm.
recharging,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So, share those passions there, share your mission in life, share your passions with staff, but let them share with you back. Okay. And so,
Okay.
reconnect there. Another thing I would say is look for efficiency. If you are behind in your notes, you're playing games with you and your patients. We don't do patient notes, we don't do records just for reimbursement. Think about it as something. I had a friend, he was 42 years old. He didn't show up for the office. And they went to his home, got into his home, and he had died in his sleep, 42 years old. But we have an ethical responsibility to have our notes up to date, done within 48 hours for that
Absolutely.
patient and for the patient's history, their legacy as well. So I find that doctors who are spread too thin, or their staff, they may not, it's one of these where we're away from the desk or we're with patients, so we can't answer the phone right now. It's because they're the only one there. They don't have any staff, and they're trying to file claims and everything else,
Hmm.
and that's just too much stress. So I think you will find, and I just had a conversation with a doctor just this morning about that as well. Is that he said, "Well, I'd have another mouth to feed." Yeah, but when you're efficient, when you create a vacuum, that vacuum usually fills with more patients.
Yeah. It's kind of the other side of that conversation before, right? It becomes a cycle. Success in this case feeds success, right? You
Right?
you find a way to bring more patients in because you've got more time to actually treat them because you're not billing, you're not, doing whatever you move off your plate, right? And teach their own how they want to handle that. But I think that that does touch on maybe a point that I could hear listeners talking about, right? Well, finding time for myself and becoming more efficient to do more things. I don't have time for that. How do we address that, right? Our lives are busy. Everybody's life is busy and it's only getting busier. What to the person that says, I don't have, I don't have a minute in my day to reflect on my purpose. I don't have 5 minutes in my day to play guitar. How do I balance all of this?
There was a story, and it might have been even Norman Vincent Peale, because I read John Maxwell as well. A lot of different stories there, and he told the story, and it just came to mind. I don't know why, but it just came to mind. It was the wife said to the husband, she said, um, it's Saturday. You need to clean the garage today. He goes, what? I am so busy. I've got things to do here. I don't have time to clean the garage. Okay. I mean, why don't you tell me this ahead of time? And so he's hemming and hawing, and then he gets a phone call. And his friend calls him up and says, hey, you want to go out and golf, around the golf? He goes,
Yeah,
yeah, I'm all in. I'm
plenty
ready
of
to go.
time.
Okay. So the key is that, and I know it sounds trivial and easy, but number one, understand that procrastination is just another way of saying no without saying no. Okay. And
Absolutely.
so prioritize your to-do list, all right?
Okay.
And when you're prioritizing to do, like I got to get these notes done, all right? I've got to attend, Sally's baseball game, or and then for yourself. So in other words, that category, that column, if you will, include yourself in that column. What are you going to take care of?
Okay.
I always like, as a family person, I have two children, and my wife and the kids, like, let's do this we're going to go at 9 o'clock, and then at 11 o'clock we're going to do this, and
The
at one
schedule.
o'clock, and we live and die by a schedule.
Yeah.
And on our time off, it's like sometimes, why don't we just take some time and just see what happens? Okay, let's go here tomorrow, and when we get there, we get there, and then let's have some fun or whatever it might be. You see,
Yeah.
and so, and of course, we're with patients, with people all day long, every single day. And that's why, me personally, I can just only speak from personal experience. Reading a good book or playing my guitar by myself,
Yeah.
is like, sometimes that's a great way to disconnect, to get away from that. You see?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a great piece of advice, to put yourself into that schedule, right? I think we often lose track of that. We stop prioritizing ourselves. We think we are. We're prioritizing the business. We're prioritizing all the stuff we have to get done during the day, which we have to get done, and that's important and that's great. But we make ourselves second, third, or fourth on that list of priorities, and then you're to the point where you've got to climb back over all those other things, and it's much harder to get out of that hole. So I think that's a fantastic piece of advice, to work yourself into that priorities list, into that schedule, and make sure that you set aside some time for you. Find the time, make the time, because if you don't make it now, you got to make 3 times more later. So
So here's two scenarios. Here is the doctor, the chiropractor, who is giving everything to the profession, to, his office, his patients, his staff. Then you have the other person, the other side of the coin, who's giving everything to himself.
mm-hmm.
I can't do that because I'm working out at that time or whatever, right? And it's balance. It's
It's
finding
give and take. Yep.
that balance in there. And so, um, I would tell doctors, and I've told staff this too, who controls the schedule in your office? It's not the patient, okay? And the doctor is not off that day. The doctor is not with patients at that time, because
Okay.
we're never off, are we?
Yeah.
Right? See, and
Mentally, we're not.
so train your staff. The doctor is not seeing patients at that time. Oh, is he golfing? No, he's not seeing patients at that time, because we have administrative work as well. Okay.
Yep.
But you don't have to say he's taking time for himself, but,
Yeah.
schedule that time for yourself as well.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, I'm gonna put you on the spot with my last couple of questions.
Sure.
So you referenced this a little earlier, and feel free to lightly share, because I understand this is a bit personal. But you said, remember why you got into it. Focus on your why. What was your why for practice, and what's your why today and plan B of your life?
When I first got into chiropractic, and, talking to other chiropractors, they get it. And talking to the lay people, it's kind of like, yeah, right, okay. But I remember having sciatica, and I was an X-ray tech. I wanted to become a radiologist, and I
Okay.
probably, would not have done well, but because I'm a people person. And, I remember calling a friend of mine who had become a chiropractor and getting my first adjustment. And I describe this, and it's like almost emotional, is that when I got that first adjustment, it was like the clouds opened up and the angels said, "This is what you're going to do the rest of your life."
Okay.
Okay. That was
Yeah.
1982. That was a long time ago. Okay. More than some of our listeners were even born, right? And it's that joy, that passion, that really got me through all everything, the hard times. Okay.
Okay.
And but now my passion is, and I'm gonna throw a Debbie Downer on this here, okay? That two doctors now, I got calls from them, and they are having insurance recoupment problems.
Okay.
And I remember one doctor specifically, and I said to him, I know this is stressful. You'll get through it. Okay. If here's my cell phone number, and I said, I don't care if it's 2 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday morning, feel free to call me up. Well, I didn't hear from him for a couple of weeks. So I called his office and somebody answered, and I said, I'm just checking on the case here. What happened? He hasn't called me back. She goes, You didn't hear? The doctor didn't come to work, and we went to his house and he had shot himself in the head,
Oh my
committed
gosh.
suicide. Well, that case, and what really, I mean, that's horrible. But what actually happened is that case, it still went through the rebuttal process and the recoupment process. And in the end, his estate had to pay the recoupment. And the recoupment was $28,000.
Jeez.
So he took his life for $28,000.
Yeah.
You see? And I can say that now because time has passed, but it struck me so hard it brought tears to me. And it was like
Absolutely.
helping doctors proactively, to compliance and risk management. Nobody wants to hear that, but Dave Ramsey talks about asset protection all the time. That's
Yep.
what that
And
is. And
exactly.
then helping them on the other side, and I'm not a lawyer, but I'm a professional compliance specialist now. And so that's what keeps me going even in these years. I don't have to work. Yeah, I get paid well for what I'm doing, but I enjoy it as well, you see.
Good.
So
Well, thank you for that. Thank you very much for the time today. I hope we've reached a couple of doctors that, just haven't been having the most fun in practice lately. So anything we can do, we'll link some stuff in the show notes from the conversation today. But thank you, Dr. Fucinari, for all that info today and taking the time to talk with us.
thank you, John. Great being with you.
Dr. Fucinari, thank you again for joining us. I think it's been a really valuable conversation today, and honestly, one I wish I'd have had early in my career. I don't know if I'd still be in active practice today, but it definitely would have been something that would have opened my eyes and given me some things to think about. We'll put all of Dr. Fucinari's recommendations and information in the show notes and on the NCMIC website. If you found this conversation valuable, please share it with your colleagues, your friends, anybody that might be experiencing burnout. They don't have to be a chiropractor. This information is helpful for everyone. This episode of Chiropractical is going to be available across all audio and video platforms. For the video version, head over to the NCMIC YouTube channel. And please feel free to reach out to us at askncmic@ncmic.com or connect with me directly at jkec@ncmic.com. I'd love to hear feedback. I'd love to hear questions, suggestions for new shows, whatever it is. Keep it coming. I'm Jon Kec. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Chiropractical.